Have you ever noticed life doesn't always feel heavy because of big problems? Sometimes it feels heavy because of small habits we repeat every day. Stay with me till the end because the last few lessons might quietly change how you wake up tomorrow morning. Many of us are doing okay on the outside. We're studying, working, earning, achieving. But inside, there's tiredness without reason, irritation without cause, and heaviness without explanation. We wonder, why does life feel so exhausting even when nothing is terribly wrong? And today, I want to gently tell you, life doesn't become lighter by changing your entire future. Life becomes lighter when you change your daily direction. Let me walk with you through 7 simple habits. Not dramatic, not glamorous, but deeply transformative. And if you think the first few are useful, don't miss the last ones, because that's where the real shift happens. Most people don't actually wake up in the morning. Their phones wake up first, the alarm rings, the hand reaches out, and before the eyes have even adjusted to the light, the mind has already entered the marketplace of the world. Messages, missed calls, notifications, news, someone else's urgency becomes your anxiety. And then we say, I don't know why I feel tired, but how can the mind feel fresh when it starts the day already running? I once met a young professional who told me, I wake up exhausted even after sleeping 8 hours. I asked him something very simple. When you wake up, what is the first thing you touch? He smiled and said, my phone. I said, that explains everything. You see, sleep gives rest to the body, but peace is given to the mind only by awareness. And awareness doesn't come from screens, it comes from silence. The first few minutes after waking up are incredibly sacred. The mind is soft, the ego is quiet, the heart is open, and whatever enters at that moment sets the emotional tone of the entire day. If the first thing you consume is chaos, comparison, or information overload, your nervous system believes today is a battlefield. But if the first thing you offer yourself is stillness, even for 5 minutes, your soul whispers, today is manageable. Now please understand, this is not about becoming a monk or escaping responsibility. This is about choosing who enters your inner space first. Imagine inviting guests into your house while you are still brushing your teeth. The bed is unmade and the lights are off. That's what we do mentally every morning. We allow the world inside before we've even met ourselves. A lighter life begins the day you decide. Before I check what the world wants from me, I will check how I am feeling inside. It could be prayer. It could be deep breathing. It could be gratitude. It could simply be sitting quietly and watching your breath. Not for 1 hour, not even for 20 minutes. Sometimes 3 conscious minutes are more powerful than 3 unconscious hours. One student told me, I don't have time in the morning. I said, if you don't have time for yourself, then the whole day will take time away from you. When you start your day centered, something magical happens. Problems don't disappear, but they stop feeling personal. People don't change, but your reactions soften. Pressure doesn't reduce, but your capacity increases. This habit doesn't make life easier, it makes you stronger. And strength doesn't come from motivation, it comes from alignment. When the inner compass is set before the outer journey begins, life automatically feels lighter. You walk slower, yet you reach faster. You speak less, yet you're heard more. You do less, yet you achieve deeper satisfaction. This is why the wise don't rush their mornings. They know that how you begin decides how you bear the weight of the day. So tomorrow morning, try this. Delay the phone, sit with yourself, breathe consciously, offer one sincere thank you to life. Because when you begin the day connected to yourself, you don't need to fight the world to feel okay. And this habit, this single shift, creates the inner calm required for the next lesson, where we learn how to stop draining our energy through unconscious complaints. Once you begin the day with a little silence and awareness, you start noticing something very interesting. You realize that most of your exhaustion does not come from work, it comes from how you talk to life. Complaining feels harmless. In fact, it feels relieving. You vent, you express, you let it out, and for a moment, it feels light. But here is the quiet truth. Every complaint trains the mind to feel like a victim. I once met a man who complained about traffic every single day. One day I asked him, "Do you expect traffic to disappear tomorrow?" He laughed and said, "Of course not." Then I asked, "Then why do you rehearse your suffering daily?" We complain about weather, people, systems, timing, parents, bosses, fate, but rarely do we notice how complaining slowly convinces the mind that life is happening to us, not for us. A lighter life begins when you understand this simple shift. You may not control situations, but you always control your response. Now, please don't misunderstand. This is not about suppressing emotions or pretending everything is fine. This is about choosing consciousness over commentary. Most people react automatically. Something goes wrong. The mouth opens before awareness arrives. Words spill out, energy leaks out, peace walks out, and then later we wonder, why do I feel drained even though nothing major happened? Because complaining is like a slow puncture. It doesn't burst your happiness immediately. It leaks it quietly, consistently, daily. A young woman once told me, "Prabhuji, I don't complain much, I just state facts." I smiled and said, "Facts spoken without responsibility still become emotional poison." The moment you replace complaining with conscious questioning, something changes inside. Instead of saying, "Why does this always happen to me?" you ask, "What is this moment asking from me?" Instead of saying, "People are impossible," you ask, "How can I respond without losing my peace?" This doesn't make you passive, it makes you powerful, because responsibility is light, blame is heavy. Blame ties you emotionally to the problem. Responsibility frees you to move forward. Have you noticed? The happiest people are not those who have, if the least problems, but those who have stopped arguing internally with reality. They don't waste energy fighting what is. They invest energy improving what can be. And the moment you stop fighting reality, life feels lighter. There is a beautiful inner discipline you can practice. Before complaining, pause for 3 seconds and ask yourself, will this sentence reduce my burden or increase it? Most of the time, silence feels wiser than speech. This habit doesn't silence your voice, it refines it. You start speaking with intention, not irritation. You start responding, not reacting, and slowly your inner world becomes less noisy. When complaints reduce, clarity increases. When clarity increases, presence deepens. And this naturally leads us to the next realization. That life doesn't feel heavy because we do too much. It feels heavy because we do too much without presence. And that's where the next lesson gently begins. As complaints begin to reduce, something unexpected happens. You suddenly realize you're not as busy as you thought. You were just scattered. Most people don't suffer because life demands too much from them. They suffer because their attention is divided into too many pieces. You eat while scrolling. You listen while planning your reply. You rest while worrying about tomorrow. You pray while checking the time. And then we wonder, why do I feel tired even on days when I didn't do much? Because the mind gets exhausted when it is everywhere except where the body is. I once met a man who said, "I work 10 hours a day, but I'm never satisfied." I asked him, "Are you working, or are you thinking about 10 other things while working?" He paused. He understood. A lighter life is not created by doing less. It is created by doing fully. Presence is the most underestimated form of self-care. When you give full attention to one task, something beautiful happens. The task finishes faster. The mind feels calmer, the heart feels more fulfilled. But when you divide attention, every task feels heavier than it actually is. Think about it. Carrying one bag with both hands feels manageable. Carrying 5 small bags in 5 directions pulls you apart. That's what multitasking does to the mind. The mind was not designed to be a browser with 20 tabs open. It was designed to be a lamp, focused, steady, illuminating one space at a time. When you eat with awareness, digestion improves. When you listen fully, relationships soften. When you work with presence, stress reduces. And the most beautiful part, presence brings joy without effort. Joy is not always found in achievement. Often, joy is found in attention. A child playing with a simple toy is happier than an adult scrolling endlessly, not because the toy is better, but because the child is present. We lose lightness, not because life becomes complicated, but because we stop being simple inside. One monk beautifully said, "When you walk, walk. When you eat, eat. When you rest, rest." That's not laziness, that's mastery of energy. Because every time you're fully present, you stop leaking energy, and most exhaustion is nothing but leaked energy. When you do one thing at a time, the mind stops racing. When the mind stops racing, the heart feels safe. And when the heart feels safe, life feels lighter. This habit requires practice, not perfection. You will drift, you will forget, but each time you return to presence, you reclaim a little peace. Start small. One meal without a phone, one conversation without distraction, one task without rushing to the next. And slowly you will notice life hasn't slowed down, but you have stopped being dragged by it. And when presence becomes your natural rhythm, your words also begin to change. Which leads us gently into the next realization that many of life's burdens are created not by events, but by how we speak when we are tired, stressed, or emotionally overloaded. And that is where the next lesson quietly unfolds. When presence begins to enter your actions, you become more aware of something very subtle yet powerful. You notice that most damage in life doesn't happen during major crises. It happens in small moments, when we are tired, hungry, stressed, or overwhelmed. At those moments, the tongue becomes faster than wisdom. A harsh word spoken in exhaustion can stay in someone's heart for years. An impatient tone can undo months of love, and later we say, "I didn't mean it," but the heart remembers. Impact, not intention. I once met a mother who told me, "I love my child more than anything, but sometimes I lose my temper." I asked her, "Does it happen when you are rested and calm?" She said, "No, only when I'm tired." I smiled gently and said, "Then your tiredness is speaking, not your heart." Life becomes lighter when you realize this truth. You are not your emotions. You are the awareness behind them. But awareness disappears when energy is low. That is why one of the most powerful habits is learning to pause before speaking, especially when you are not at your best. You don't need spiritual knowledge into those moments. You need emotional discipline. A simple pause can save a relationship. A breath can prevent regret. Silence sometimes is the highest form of intelligence. Now, this doesn't mean you should never express yourself. It means you choose when and how to express. There is a big difference between being honest and being harsh. Honesty spoken with kindness heals. Honesty spoken with ego wounds. Before speaking, ask yourself one simple question. Is this coming from awareness or from agitation? If it's agitation, wait. Peaceful words don't disappear if you delay them. Angry words usually do. Most people don't regret what they didn't say. They regret what they said without awareness. And the strange thing is, we are polite to strangers and careless with those closest to us. Why? Because we assume love will understand. But love also gets tired. Every unkind word adds invisible weight to relationships. And relationships are the heaviest emotional luggage we carry. A lighter life is not about perfect communication, it is about responsible communication. You don't have to win every argument, you don't have to correct everyone, you don't have to express every thought. Peace is more important than proving a point. And when you begin choosing kindness over impulse, something shifts inside you. You feel less guilty, you sleep better, your heart feels cleaner. Because kindness is not only for others, it is also self-care. When you stop hurting others unintentionally, you stop hurting yourself internally. And slowly, the mind becomes quieter. Now, as words become softer, another burden begins to surface, a deeper one. Not the burden of today, but the weight of yesterday, regret, guilt, resentment. And unless we learn how to put down the past, no amount of present awareness can fully lighten life. Which brings us gently to the next lesson, one of the most freeing habits of all, learning to stop carrying yesterday into today. Most people wake up every morning carrying invisible luggage. It has no handle, no lock, but it is very heavy. Inside it are old mistakes, unspoken regrets, unresolved anger, guilt, and countless, if only, thoughts. And the strange thing is, the past doesn't weigh anything physically, but emotionally, it can bend the strongest shoulders. I once met a young man who said, "I can't move forward in life." I asked him, "What are you holding on to?" He said, "Nothing," but his eyes told a different story. You see, we often say we have moved on, but our mind keeps revisiting old rooms that no longer belong to us. Life becomes lighter when you understand this truth. The past is a place of learning, not living. Every experience comes to teach, not to punish. But when we replay it again and again, we turn lessons into prisons. Regret is useful only once, to awaken responsibility. After that, it becomes emotional self-harm. Many people punish themselves longer than life ever intended to. A mistake happened, you learned, you grew. Why carry it like a lifelong sentence? Forgiveness is not about excusing wrong behavior. Forgiveness is about refusing to carry unnecessary weight. And this applies not only to forgiving others, but also forgiving yourself. People often say, "I can forgive others, but I can't forgive myself." But ask yourself, if you keep punishing yourself, who benefits? Not you, not the world, not even the lesson. Self-forgiveness is not weakness. It is wisdom. You are allowed to outgrow your past. Another heavy burden is resentment. Resentment is like drinking poison and hoping the other person will suffer. When you hold on to anger, you stay emotionally connected to the person or event that hurt you. You give them free rent in your mind. Letting go is not losing. Letting go is choosing peace over prolonged pain. A lighter life begins the day you say, "I will learn from yesterday, but I will not relive it." One simple habit can transform this inner weight. At the end of the day, ask yourself, what did today teach me? Not what went wrong, but what did I understand better? When learning replaces blaming, healing begins. And please remember, growth is messy. Transformation is uncomfortable. Be kind to yourself in the process. You don't owe your past eternal loyalty. You owe your present clarity. When you stop dragging yesterday into today, you free energy for something beautiful. Because once the heart is lighter, it naturally wants to give. And that leads us to the next realization. That the most exhausted people are often not overworked, but over-focused on themselves. Which brings us to the next lesson. The habit that shifts life from heaviness to meaning. Once the weight of the past begins to loosen, something very interesting happens. You suddenly have more emotional space. And the question becomes, what will you fill that space with? Many people unknowingly fill it with themselves, their worries, their ambitions, their fears, their constant self-analysis. And the more life revolves only around me, the heavier it feels. I have met very successful people who are deeper. Why exhausted? Not because they work too hard, but because everything in their life points back to themselves. I want to be happy. I want peace. I want success. I want recognition. Now observe this carefully. The word I appears in every sentence. The problem is not desire. The problem is isolation of purpose. Life becomes lighter when you attach your energy to something bigger than your ego. Service doesn't always mean big charity or grand gestures. Service is a mindset. It is the decision to contribute, not just consume. A teacher who teaches with care, a student who helps a friend, a professional who works with integrity, a parent who listens fully. Service shifts the focus from what am I getting to what am I giving, and the moment giving becomes natural. Complaining reduces, comparison fades, and gratitude grows. There is a beautiful paradox here. When life becomes less about you, it actually becomes more fulfilling for you. I once met a man who said, I feel empty even though I have everything. I asked him, who do you live for? He had no answer. Purpose is not something you find in isolation. It is something you experience when your actions benefit others. Serving something larger than your ego could be your family, your values, your work done sincerely, your spiritual path, humanity in small ways. And no, this doesn't make you weak, it makes you anchored. When your life has meaning, stress becomes manageable. When your life has meaning, struggles feel temporary. When your life has meaning, even pain teaches. This is why people who serve selflessly often radiate calm. They're tired sometimes, yes, but not drained. Because exhaustion of the body is natural. Exhaustion of the soul comes only from self-obsession. A lighter life is not a selfish life or a self-denying life. It is a purpose-centered life. And when purpose enters your days, even small actions feel worthwhile. Now, once service and meaning settle into the heart, the day begins to feel complete. But there is one final habit, the closing ritual of the day, that decides whether life feels heavy tomorrow or lighter again. This last lesson is the soul of transformation. Most people don't realize this, but how you end the day programs how you experience life. The body sleeps, yes, but the mind continues wherever you leave it. For many people, the last act of the day is scrolling. News, reels, messages, comparisons, unfinished conversations, and then they say, I slept but I don't feel rested, because the mind didn't rest. It remained stimulated, unsettled, unfinished. Sleep gives rest to the body. Gratitude gives rest to the soul. A lighter life begins at night, not in the morning. I once met a man who said, my days are stressful. I asked him, how do your nights end? He said, on my phone. I smiled and said, then tomorrow's stress has already been prepared. The mind believes whatever you repeat before sleeping. If you repeat dissatisfaction, the mind wakes up searching for more problems. If you repeat gratitude, the mind wakes up softer, calmer, stronger. Gratitude is not denial of difficulty. It is recognition of grace despite difficulty. Even on the hardest days, something went right. You breathed, you survived, you learned, you tried. Gratitude doesn't mean life was perfect. It means life was alive. A simple habit can transform your inner world. Before sleeping, pause and thank life for 3 things. They don't have to be big. They just have to be sincere. Thank you for the food I ate. Thank you for the strength to continue. Thank you for the lesson I understood today. This practice gently closes emotional loops. The mind stops racing. The heart softens, sleep becomes deeper. And here's something beautiful. When you sleep with gratitude, you wake up with acceptance. Acceptance doesn't make you passive, it makes you peaceful. Many people chase happiness all day and miss peace at night. But peace is what actually makes life feel lighter. Life is not meant to be conquered every day. Some days are meant to be embraced. When gratitude becomes your night companion, you stop carrying the weight of not enough into tomorrow. And slowly, life stops feeling like a struggle and starts feeling like a journey. So remember this timeless truth. Life doesn't feel lighter when everything is resolved. Life feels lighter when your heart is settled. Begin the day with awareness. Live the day with presence. End the day with gratitude. And you will discover something profound. Life's weight is not reduced by changing circumstances. It is reduced by changing consciousness. Walk gently, live consciously, and let each small habit make your life feel lighter. Every single day, life feels heavy for many people, not because it truly is heavy, but because they have unknowingly learned habits that make it feel so. And the strange part is, most of these habits don't look harmful on the surface. They look normal, they look modern, they look efficient. Yet slowly, day after day, they add invisible weight to the heart. Have you ever noticed how some people carry life gently, even when they are busy, even when challenges exist, and others feel exhausted even on ordinary days? The difference is not destiny, the difference is daily consciousness. Let us begin at the very start of the day, because how you open your eyes in the morning quietly decides how your heart will carry the day. Most people wake up and immediately hand their mind over to the world. Before they have even taken a deep breath, they have checked messages, emails, news, and notifications. Within seconds, the mind is pulled into urgency, comparison, and expectation. And then we wonder why the day feels rushed and heavy. The early moments after waking up are like freshly fallen snow. Whatever steps you place there leave deep impressions. Dub. The first input of the day is noise. The nervous system stays noisy. When the first input is awareness, the mind remains grounded. You don't need to do something complicated. You don't need perfect discipline. Even a few moments of silence, sitting quietly, breathing consciously, offering a short prayer or intention, can create inner stability. When you meet yourself before meeting the world, life feels less demanding. You stop reacting and start responding. From this awareness, you begin to notice something else. How much energy is lost through unnecessary complaining. Complaining is addictive because it feels validating. It gives temporary relief. But slowly it trains the mind to feel powerless. Each complaint subtly says, I am at the mercy of life. Over time, this mindset becomes exhausting. A conscious person doesn't deny difficulties. They simply don't argue emotionally with reality. They ask better questions. Instead of, why is this happening to me? They ask, what is needed from me right now? That small shift moves you from victimhood to responsibility. Responsibility is empowering. Blame is draining. When you take ownership of your response, even difficult situations stop feeling overwhelming. Life doesn't become lighter because problems disappear. It becomes lighter because you stop carrying them emotionally everywhere you go. As complaining reduces, another truth becomes clear. Much of our tiredness doesn't come from workload. It comes from mental fragmentation. We try to do everything at once. We eat while scrolling, listen while thinking, rest while planning. The body may be doing one thing, but the mind is scattered across many places. This constant division of attention creates deep fatigue. Presence is healing. When you give full attention to what you are doing, whether it is working, listening, eating, or resting, energy stops leaking. Tasks feel simpler. The mind calms down. Even ordinary moments begin to feel meaningful. Life is not asking you to do less, it is asking you to be more present. When attention becomes focus, the weight of busyness disappears. You realize you were not overloaded, you were just unfocused. As presence deepens, communication also begins to change. You start noticing how words spoken without awareness create unnecessary wounds. Many regrets in life don't come from what happened, they come from what was said in moments of emotional exhaustion. Tired minds speak carelessly, stressed hearts become sharp. Kindness requires energy. When energy is low, awareness must be high. Learning to pause before speaking, especially when irritated or overwhelmed, saves relationships and protects inner peace. Silence at times is not avoidance, it is wisdom. Speaking gently is not about being weak, it is about being emotionally intelligent. Words cannot be taken back. Their impact often lasts longer than we expect. When communication becomes conscious, guilt reduces, regret softens, and the heart feels lighter. As words become gentler, the mind becomes quieter. And in that quiet, another heavy burden often reveals itself. The weight of the past. Many people live today while emotionally stuck in yesterday. Old mistakes, unresolved guilt, lingering resentment, and self-blame quietly drain their energy. The past becomes a place they keep visiting, even though it no longer serves them. The past was meant to educate, not imprison. Once a lesson is learned, the punishment must end. Holding on to regret does not make you responsible, it makes you stuck. Forgiveness, especially self-forgiveness, is essential for a lighter life. Letting go does not mean forgetting, it means accepting that growth is imperfect. You are allowed to evolve beyond who you were. When you stop carrying yesterday into today, energy returns, emotional space opens, and when space opens, the heart naturally looks beyond itself. One of the biggest reasons people feel empty and exhausted is excessive self-focus. Life becomes a constant internal conversation about personal problems, fears, and desires. This creates emotional isolation. Serving something beyond yourself, a cause, a person, a value, or a purpose, expands the heart. Service doesn't have to be dramatic. It can be simple sincerity in your work, genuine care in relationships, or quiet acts of kindness. When life has meaning, stress feels manageable. When actions serve something larger than ego, even challenges feel worthwhile. Purpose reduces heaviness because it gives direction to effort. And finally, the way you close the day determines how you will carry tomorrow. Many people end the day overstimulated, screens, thoughts, unresolved emotions. The body sleeps, but the mind stays restless. Gratitude gently completes the day. It signals to the mind that enough has been done. Gratitude doesn't deny difficulty. It acknowledges grace alongside effort. Even small expressions of thankfulness soften the heart. When the day ends with gratitude, sleep becomes deeper, and the next day feels lighter. Life does not need to be perfect to feel peaceful. It needs awareness, presence, responsibility, kindness, forgiveness, purpose, and gratitude. Practice gently, daily. Remember this, life doesn't feel lighter when circumstances change. Life feels lighter when consciousness rises. Walk slowly, live deliberately, and allow simple daily habits to transform the weight you carry, one day at a time. So, as you walk forward from here, remember this gently. Life was never meant to be rushed, wrestled, or constantly proven. Life was meant to be lived with awareness, guided by faith, and softened by gratitude. You don't need to control everything. You only need to trust that when your intentions are pure and your efforts are sincere, the divine is already arranging what you cannot see. Do your part with honesty, walk your path with humility, and leave the results with faith. Because when you place your trust higher than your fear, the heart becomes lighter, the mind becomes calmer, and the journey becomes meaningful. Remember this eternal truth: when you are G and your daily habits, with faith and awareness, life doesn't feel lighter because problems disappear. Life feels lighter because you are no longer carrying it alone. Live consciously, serve sincerely, trust deeply, and you will realize the lightness you were searching for outside was always waiting to awaken within you.